Y'all, I need your help. How did, someone has to explain to me, how did Aaron M. Holt get two attractive women, seemingly possessing brains, to fuck him? That is a question that I keep having. But I like the red shirt. I'm just very into comfort at this moment because you never know when the cops are going to come and these days and take you away for the things stashed under your bed or in your safe. And so, like, that was really like the Rekieta thing was really a wake up call for me about my own life. And one of the lessons that I took from that is that you should always be comfortable in case the police arrest you. So good for him that it wasn't midstream. I mean, I don't know. Is that good? Would it have been actually better to have gotten a live stream of that happening, because it would have gotten like what, millions of views? So to have that to stream your arrest, yeah, that would get a lot of views. So anyway, I like this comment. What are you hiding in your safe? I just have to say, I was amazed at the size of that safe in the pictures. So I don't want to, one of the things that I don't like that people are doing, some people are giving away addresses of people involved in this Rekieta situation. I understand that they're in the court docs, the idiot law enforcement, leaving them in there, things like that in there. But I will say this, though. I did look up the address, the Rekieta address, and I looked at the house on Zillow, and they're not selling it or whatever, but I guess sometime in the past before they bought it, or I mean, doesn't Zillow have pictures of all of our homes now, basically, somehow? Do they have cameras in our rooms? But no, I wanted to look it up. I was just curious because people were talking about this giant safe that Rekieta has. And so I thought that they were exaggerating. And I was like, oh, yeah, giant safe. Oh, yeah. And he was storing up lots of guns and ammo, too. Cocaine trafficker or whatever. So I was just rolling my eyes. But damn, that safe is big. I mean, that would be, you know what I thought living in Texas? I thought that is an excellent storm shelter, which we needed the other day because I went to my mom's house. I stayed with her for a little while. And we had a crazy storm in that part of Texas. I mean, it seems like there've just been a ton of crazy storms the last few months, actually. But we had a crazy storm, and we had trees all around getting knocked over. I don't know if it was a low-grade tornado or if it was just a really intense storm. Boom. And then something was really whipping shit around, and that's when the trees fell. And we're talking about giant trees. So like we're on a cul-de-sac, or my mom is. And like we were completely blocked from getting out of the house because there was a giant tree blocking the entire street. So anyway, I don't know, enough about weather stories. They're really only interesting kind of like dreams if they're your own. Otherwise, it's very boring to listen to people talk about the weather or things that they have dreamed. But my whole point is, I was thinking during that, man, I wish I had the Rekieta safe. I'm serious. It did actually cross my mind because I was trying to game in my mind where would be the safest part of the house. And of course, some of you probably know, you want to get to the most. Anyway, I was running through all these calculations in like 20 seconds and like going around picking up the cats to bring them in. And I was thinking, man, if only we could get into like something that's like really sturdy and it's like made of metal and it's heavy and won't get tossed around and you'll be insulated and protected. And I was like, oh yeah, the Rekieta safe. And by the way, if you're one of my usual viewers, you don't know what's going on. This is a big YouTuber, a big law tuber, as people put it. Although I think he kind of rejects that label, right? But a big YouTuber. And there have been a number of national articles written now in the last 2 weeks about the fact that he and his wife and a friend of theirs got arrested for possession of like 1 ounce of cocaine, like a decent size amount, you could say. And then also there were court documents released that basically provided allegations of child neglect or kids not being fed, being clothed properly, wearing clothes several days in a row. And so I said this week that I thought I understood like reporting on the documents, and Rekieta's a public guy. He continues to be a public guy. People say, oh, he would be reporting on it if the shoe were on the other foot and whatever. So, I mean, yeah, I'm talking about it. Other people are talking about it. I don't have a problem with that. Somewhat ambivalent at times about, as I am with almost everything I report on. But I think that it's not a big deal. But to talk about restaurant with his family or someone, or April at the gas station, or reporting back to people on YouTube about what they look like and what they were doing. It just personally, it bothers me just because I guess putting myself in his position, if this happened to me, I would understand people talking about it. I really do think I would on YouTube and cracking jokes about it. And I, like Rekieta, I think would try to make something out of that, take advantage of it to some extent by saying, okay, if I'm going to be getting all this attention, then let's do a live stream. I'll continue my YouTubing. Like, I totally understand that. But I guess that I would wish if I were in that situation to have at least some shell of privacy left where once I'm off the stream, once I'm off Twitter, and maybe that's naive, but once I'm off stream, once I'm off Twitter, Instagram, that I wouldn't have to worry that when I go to the store in this small town, there are people who are going to be, surreptitiously snapping photos of me and then sending them to YouTubers. And I'm not blaming YouTubers or whatever. I don't have a problem with people who were reporting on this so much because they weren't even generally saying bad things about him, right? But just the idea that he and his family and the other woman involved in this, they can't be left alone, even in their town. But I don't know, maybe that's naive. I mean, I know that happens with celebrities all the time, right? And celebrities are stalked by paparazzi and stuff, but I don't think that's good either. I try most of the time to actually not report on these paparazzi photos because most of the time it's not even interesting. So I mean, if you stick to the court documents or things that these celebrities have actually done or said in public, I mean, while they're being observed, they know they're being observed, they're on in public, so to speak. Then there's plenty of gossip that way. There's plenty to look into. But the idea of actually like people just never being able to get away from other people taking photos and monitoring their behavior, it's just very dystopic. So I don't know. But it's time to SWAT CK. Well, I am not at all making light of what might be going on in Rekieta's life, right? I, like others, have been cracking jokes occasionally and certainly following the circus. And I know what I was going to say. I went the other night and paid $5 to join Rekieta's locals so that I could see his live stream, because this was going to be Rekieta's first live stream since the arrest. And he really hadn't been talking much on Twitter, honestly, here and there, kind of clapping back to some people talking about him, but not really. And so I saw Tug said on Twitter that Rekieta was going to be doing his first live stream on locals. And I have never, this is the power of bad PR. I have never joined someone's locals ever. I think I've only been to the local site like 3 times to consider getting on myself. And then I was like, it's too much trouble or whatever. It's hard to keep track of all the apps, honestly. I just can't add locals right now. I mean, I'm not even doing well with the other ones. But the point is, though, I've never paid money to join someone's locals, but I did not even hesitate to pay $5 to watch Rekieta's stream. That was the only reason. And so if I'm doing that, then I'm sure that there are a number of other people. Well, I know actually of like 2 people I know for sure who did the same thing. I know there've got to be a number of other people who are tuning in now to him and will continue to tune into him. Now, I know there's a whole real dimension to this that has nothing to do with the virtual world, where we're talking about a real family and real people and real kids. And I understand that there is legitimate, and I totally get it and agree, legitimate concern if things got so out of hand at the Rekieta house with drugs or whatever, if things got so out of hand there that the kids were being neglected and seriously neglected, if they're not being fed well, and if they are running around several days in a row in stinky clothes, even 2 days in a row, in stinky clothes. I know some of you, I'm not a parent. I know some of you are parents and say that, look, it's normal at times for kids to get stinky or even wear clothes 2 days in a row, or even be hungry at times, not because they're not being fed, but because they're fussy or whatever. And I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but I mean, I get that, but also we can't be closed to the idea that perhaps someone, even a good person and someone that we admire, we find entertaining or what have you, is super smart, that someone could temporarily get so drawn into the pit of the dysfunction that often comes along with addiction, not always with drug or alcohol use or whatever, right? But the dysfunction that comes into one's life with hardcore addiction, which we all know, a lot of us personally, that could not cause someone to drop the ball when it comes to parenting. I mean, it is a very obvious statement that is a significant possibility, right? And so, and it doesn't make it doesn't I hate some of the rhetoric on Twitter surrounding this, like, a shithole dad, people saying, "Oh, Rekieta is a shithole dad," or horrible junkie father, and all these things. And it is very possible that someone can, on the whole, be a very good parent, and that they go through a bad period where they're not on top of everything they should be on top of. I'm not making light of these allegations, but I'm just saying, we don't, as Rekieta said in his stream when he came back. And by the way, if you want to watch it, it's been posted on Twitter. But like he said on his stream when he came back, we're getting a tiny sliver of information from a government document. And I'm not one of these people that say, oh, the government always lies, or, fuck the police or anything like that. But we all know that a government report that is supposed to be the rationale for a major arrest and prosecution, that it's going to always paint things in the most negative light if possible. And there's a lot of details missing, and so forth. And so, anyway, that's what I think about that. And you all know, because I've talked about my own relationship with my parents and an abusive dad growing up, that I, just like all of you probably, I'm not a proponent in any way or an excuser of child neglect in this case, or child abuse, but child neglect is the allegation. But we don't have enough facts, and there is a way in which I can see in something like this that Rekieta could actually be a lot. I don't want to say more, and I don't want to say innocent, because I'm pretty sure that they found a lot of coke there, right? So innocence, I don't point my fingers at people with addictions, right? I myself, a lot of other people have had the same problems. But if someone finds an ounce, or some people saying maybe it wasn't quite an ounce and the packaging weighed into it, okay, whatever. But someone finds a shitload of cocaine at your house, and it's obvious with, like, the blow things around and stuff, that you've been doing it, and credit cards and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that it's the police are incapable of planting evidence, but I just don't think Occam's razor, it's likely that this was just a complete hoax. And I don't think anyone's really arguing that online either. And are they? And I doubt that's what Rekieta will argue, although I don't know. But I mean, I think Rekieta could be more innocent than people are understanding him to be, with the allegations that are really bothering people, which is the child neglect stuff. And there's a way that I can see this where he's very guilty of it, and I totally see how things could have spiraled out of control with a raging addiction, as they so often do with so many people. But I can also see a way in which you might have in this small town. So this is kind of what I wonder, right? I grew up in a fairly small town in East Texas, went to the local Baptist church, which was actually, the church was so large. It was kind of a small town mega church that it actually had, at one point, it had 10% of the entire population of the town on its roll. And the town was like 90,000 people. They're not like a tiny, like, hole in the wall town, but like a small southern town. And the church had 10% of the people in the town as its members. And so I only say that, it was kind of like Footloose, right? You ever seen the Footloose movie? That was kind of like where I grew up in a way. But what I'm trying to get at is that I grew up with this very small town, churchy mentality. And a lot of you know, and I'm not slamming Christians here or slamming small towns or what have you. I just came from one, I'm living in one. Okay. But there is a certain kind of, like, especially, like traditionally, a more sort of like finger wagging, gossipy, pearl clutching, conservatism. I don't mean conservatism like Republican, but like being conservative, restrained about the way that one lives one's life, and also having particularly harsh judgments at times for people who are not living their lives that way. And so I could see where, especially since Rekieta kept going to church, why did you keep going to church? Why? If you're going to be living like Tony Montana in Scarface, you can't be going to church every weekend and hanging out with these people and doing homeschooling. I'm sorry, but this is where I don't understand, just as a matter of like intelligence, what Rekieta was thinking. Because if you're going to be living like Scarface or whatever, metaphorically speaking, and then you're going to be going to church every Sunday, and you're homeschooling, so you've got other people's kids coming into your house, and you know that when other people's kids come into your house, people get super judgmental. My child was exposed. He said that around my child, uh so like, to me, that's kind of the first like red flag with Rekieta, that maybe something was amiss there, that he did not seek to extricate himself from that situation if he was going to pursue this swinger, coke lifestyle, which I'm not judging. I really am not, but I'm just that I don't. It is. You are kind of playing with fire on that, buddy. Unless I'm not understanding. I don't know. Maybe in a future stream he can address his thinking on this, or one day when the dust is settled. Okay. Anyway, back to the Rekieta thing. So I can see a scenario where, yes, this guy and his wife, and perhaps it seems like they had a girlfriend too, which again, not judging, right? I'm not even married. But he's got his wife and his girlfriend, and they are doing a lot of cocaine. And maybe they're doing it in what you could say was a restrained way, where like it's just in the bedroom, it's just after the kids have gone to bed or when the kids are away, and everything with the kids is still running fine, et cetera, right? Like, it's not impossible. Now, a lot of people who've had experience with heavy addiction and with drugs like cocaine, right, know that it's also not highly probable either, because these things do tend to, over time, with a lot of people, they tend to get out of control. But it's I can see that. I could see that being a possibility. Or more likely, this is what I see, is that the kids probably were not being significantly harmed by what was going on. The parents were doing this stuff, partying, probably was staying in the bedroom. But because of the kind of a craziness that gets into your life when you start down that road, probably there were ways in which the mask was slipping, is how I will put it. The mask was slipping. And so, for instance, if Rekieta goes to church and he gets up multiple times in church to go to the bathroom, that could be completely innocent. And I know that he says that he's been sick. He was sick for weeks, which he went on his podcast, on his local stream, he maintains. He's like, look, y'all, apart from everything that you know of or that you've heard, I really was super, super sick for weeks. Okay. Entirely possible. But it's also possible that if somebody is doing a lot of cocaine, and a lot of you, know this, if you've ever gotten to the lifestyle with that, and I've seen this before in friends, where like you go somewhere and like every 10 minutes they're having to go to the bathroom. And I'm not judging, because every 10 minutes some people have to go out and smoke, and other people, I mean, everybody's got an addiction of some kind, or something that they've beaten off their back. But the point that I'm making is, when I say that the mask might have started to slip, it's not that necessarily I think that he was truly a neglectful father, or that these kids actually weren't being fed. I'll explain the kid thing in a minute. These kids actually weren't being well fed, or they weren't being lovingly taken care of, or whatever. But I do think that probably it's likely that the mask was slipping in enough ways so that you have an already a church and a community and people around you and your friends and family and stuff that are already primed to jump on you about this, or to be concerned, because they're churchy. They think that if you're doing cocaine, you're definitely in serious shit, and probably most, a lot of the time you are. But I could see a scenario where someone, like, for instance, Rekieta's sister-in-law apparently was someone who was concerned and talking to other people about this, right? Not to the cops directly herself. The only one who talked to the cops directly was this pastor. So for people who don't know, what happened was several people in the community became concerned. One of them, it turns out, was Rekieta's sister-in-law, his wife's sister. One of them was a preschool teacher, although the kids were not of preschool age, so I don't exactly know. Maybe the 6-year-old was, but the preschool teacher claimed, or talked to the pastor, and claimed that the kids had complained of being hungry, and that they had worn. It sounds like on at least one occasion that they had worn clothes for 2 or 3 days. That 2 or 3, now that can make a difference too. Not to sound like a lawyer, but 2 days is, I missed my evening bath, or things got a little bit busy, or I wouldn't take my bath, or whatever, and now I'm wearing the same thing. 3 days is like, okay, more, you got a problem, right? And in my mind, I don't have kids because I can't handle any of this shit. But I'm just saying that sort of, to me, that was an important distinction too in the police write-up, where the pastor reported that the preschool teacher told him that at least one of the kids, was it two, but that one of the Rekieta kid had claimed to be hungry and had not changed clothes in 2 or 3 days. All right, now I'll talk about that again in a minute. But I could see a scenario where if people already know that this guy is doing cocaine and that he's drinking a lot, and small community who start getting incensed about the lifestyle that Rekieta is living, and then saying, and he has 5 kids and and so forth, and that would give it enough fuel to where then some things could be taken out of context or misunderstood, right? So I think that, again, the most concerning thing is the report about the kids being stinky, wearing clothes 2 and 3 days in a row, and complaining of being hungry. And I've seen a number of Rekieta defenders online saying that could be innocent behavior that's being misinterpreted. And so, people have told me that there have been times when their kids have been really fussy and would complain to others about being hungry when, especially at a younger age, right? When really they'd been offered something to eat, something healthy or what have you, but they were being fussy. And, parents have told me about how the schedule of a parent gets so hectic that sometimes there are things that get overlooked or fall by the wayside. I understand people say, well, feeding your children, but I'm just saying that we don't exactly know, because the allegations in the police report, they're so vague in a way. We don't exactly know what's being alleged. So I'm pulling for Rekieta, just whatever the situation is in his life. If he needs help and if he needs to get better, then he'll do so. And I'm not a friend of his, and so I don't really have any more to offer than that. But I also am keeping an open mind about this situation to see how this develops, and to see, if we get more of an indication on what was really going on here. And of course, none of it's our business anyway. But none of it's our business anyway. But if we're going to be speculating about it, and people say, well, Rekieta would be speculating about it if the shoe were on the other foot and so forth. Okay, but that's what I think. So his live stream the other night, he talked about the situation more than I thought he would, actually. He said he wasn't going to talk about it much, and he didn't. I don't think that he said anything that would be damaging to him, or legally. But he did talk about it and issues relating to it, surrounding it, and kind of the hoopla of the last couple of weeks. He did talk about that. And there was a moment in the stream, I have to say, it takes balls. There was a moment in the stream where he gave a shout out to any law enforcement agents that he knew would be watching. And so, I appreciate that. And this is what I'll say about Rekieta. If it turns out that he was in such deep shit that he was being a very neglectful parent, then I think that's terrible. It's regrettable, and I hope that he will do everything he can to correct that. But apart from what ends up being the reality with all of that, I really admire his guts, his balls in picking up with his streaming and moving ahead, because a lot of people would be so humiliated by all of the attention that he's gotten and by all of the comments. And, if you saw his arraignment, he's sitting there. It was a public arraignment, right? So it's online. Like so many things these days, it's online, which I don't know. I think that until you're convicted of something, you should be anonymous. I don't agree with mugshots being made public. I don't agree with us having access as the public to all these police reports. I know it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes those police reports can give you truth, but I think that what you're doing is you're punishing the accused before they even get a trial. But his arraignment, it was live, and it was streamed by the courthouse. And so he's sitting there, still in the handcuffs. You don't see till the end, but still in the handcuffs. And he's sitting there, and the judge starts the arraignment, and you have these people jumping in, like random viewers and people who know Rekieta, jumping in and saying things to him like, you should kill yourself, you fucking loser, or things like that. And the judge, I guess the court, this doesn't say much for our justice system, but I guess the court is so incompetent that it doesn't know how to quiet other people or block other people. And so you had all of this noise, like every time people would jump in, there was a notification every time you had a new person in the audience. And then people kept initially, I guess they found a way to turn it off eventually, but initially people kept coming into the arraignment audibly. But, I look at Rekieta there and I just think, man, I mean, I know, even if you have a Nietzschean, Ubermensch attitude about life, which I really celebrate and I admire, probably I admire this quality in people more than any other quality, just as a personal preference. One of the character traits that I admire most is people who have a kind of a Nietzschean disregard for the herd mentality and that don't just automatically fall to authority, whether we're talking about the government or we're talking about the media or what have you. Now, you can take that too far, right? And maybe Rekieta is seeing the limits of that in a way that as it turns out in this world, you can't live how the fuck you want to. It's a lesson, unfortunately, we all have to learn, and I'm learning it every day. But I do respect the Nietzschean personality. But I'll say this, though, that there have been many, I'm sure many things about this, even if he has that kind of an attitude, many things about this experience that have been utterly hellish. And some people might say, well, he deserves that lesson because, if his children were being neglected. And again, I concede all of that. But I'm sure this has been in many ways a hellish experience. And so a lot of people, and there's still, by the way, I mean, he's got now these cases against him, right? And felony charges to be dealt with and so forth. Like there are a lot of people, dare I say most people, who would be reluctant to or find themselves unable to come back to public life and to start streaming again. And I understand some people might say, well, that just shows how shameless he is. Here he is. He should be going to rehab and working on things with his family and focusing on that. And he should not be streaming. And to that, I'll say, like, that is a very easy judgment for you to make. But you don't know perhaps what streaming means or doing this show and doing the Rekieta law thing. You don't know what this means to this man. And it may be that if he's going to try to get sober, he needs something in this world to fucking look forward to or to keep living for. And I can just hear people saying, well, his children aren't enough. I don't know. Maybe for some of us, it's not enough. Honestly, I don't know. And that's not to excuse any neglect or whatever. I'm very open again about the fact that I chose not to have children in part. I mean, I didn't want to, but also in part because I thought it's too much pressure. I don't think I could be a good mom. But I know that he has 5 kids, and I know that he has talked before about how that's stressful. And one of the things that I saw in the police report is that when questioned, they said that when questioned, or I guess interrogated, brought down to the interrogation room, but when questioned, one of the things that he expressed was how stressed out he had been dealing with parenthood and with all the kids and everything. And I know a lot of you are doing it every day and you say, I'm doing it without Coke. Okay. But I mean, are you doing it without anything? Is there really no vice that people in my audience have? And that's where I guess that's where the idea for me of sympathy or empathy comes in. Even if it turns out that Rekieta got in really deep shit and his life was spiraling out of control and it even became neglectful for the children, even with that, I have so much sympathy. And I guess this is the point I want to make, is that it's humbling when you look at your life to realize and accept how out of control generally we all are in some way or ways. And that doesn't mean that you should just say in a sort of hyper-determinist way, well, I don't really have free will. Free will is an illusion. And, basically we're just these biological, organisms and running on stimuli and however we're wired in the head and all of that. I mean, all of those things are true, but you can't live your life that way with that in mind. It's very demotivational. And so I totally think if people are having a hard time, they should try to improve and get out of it. If people have gone down a path that's messed up or that's hurting them or others, they should repent of it or what have you. But I do have a lot of sympathy for the idea that human beings, almost every human being that I have ever known has had to battle, whether it's addictions or weaknesses, character flaws. A lot of people find fidelity in relationships to be a challenge that they can't manage, and I say that with sympathy. But anyway, I will say one more thing about the Rekieta situation. Y'all, I need your help. How did, someone has to explain to me, how did Aaron M. Holt get 2 attractive women, seemingly possessing brains, to fuck him? That is a question that I keep having, because I'm trying. The more that I see Aaron M. Holt on my stream, on my feed, and I know it's because I'm keeping up with the Rekieta stuff, and so the more that I see him on my feed, this is the question that keeps coming to me: is like, he had this beautiful wife, April. I mean, she even looks beautiful in her mugshot. Frankly, I think that all 3 of the Rekietas look great in their mugshots. I'm not even being facetious right now, or being glib, as Tom Cruise would say. I really think they look good. And I was surprised at how many people were saying that Kayla, Rekieta's wife, looks bad. She looks startled, and yeah, she looks thinner than an earlier picture. But I don't know. As far as mugshots go, I thought it was pretty good. You know, she had the kind of the hair sort of look kind of glamorous, the hair going back. She wasn't wearing makeup, and most people aren't when they get arrested, right? But she seemed to have like clear skin, and she's like an attractive lady. So I don't know. I was a stretch for people to be freaking out about her mugshot. But April, in her mugshot, she is really hot. I mean, they both are. But April looked like some glamorous model, you know, like Lindsay Lohan in the old days getting pulled over for speeding or drinking or stealing shit, right? She looked really glamorous. And so I have this picture of these 2 women in my mind. And I know that they're intelligent, because I know that Rekieta would not marry a stupid woman. And then April, I have seen some clips from her podcast. And so these are 2 very attractive, very intelligent women. And then I see Aaron M. Holt, and I hear that obnoxious voice that makes me want to tear my ears out. And he's making some crude or narcissistic or obnoxious remark. And he's trying to at once seem like someone who is, you know, taking responsibility for himself. And I'm not pretending to be the hero in all this. At the same time that he is shuffling off the responsibility onto other people and pretending to be a hero. But I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed that he got those 2 women, not only to fuck him, but to be in relationships with him. I'm amazed. So can someone solve that equation for me? That is the most, I should do a video. I won't, but I should do a video and call it the most baffling question, the most baffling part of the Nick Rekieta case. And it'll be a video solely devoted to unpacking this question. I'm going to take a quick Coke break, and then I will be back in, give me 10 minutes. I'll try not to come back with powder on my nose. All right.